There we go. Hi, I am Erin. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to anybody new to this meeting, also new to AA or just coming back. Um, what Sinead just read on page 58 in How It Works, it talks about our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. So I'm going to tell you, I'll start off with what Erin was like in a general way. Um, my sobriety date is January 1st, 2022. About 2 years before that date, I had been drinking for every day, uh, most days, for about 18 years. And it was my very first AA meeting I attended that day. Um, I It was the evening, and I was hiding from my family drinking. I have two children. They are 13 and 11 years old right now. Um, and I was sneaking off to go buy some more vodka. It was about 5 at night. I drove down to the liquor store, got a 1.75, the big glass bottles, and then drove over across the street to Walmart. And I was just going to drink a bunch and then walk around Walmart and then drive home pretty well drunk. I pulled over to the Walmart parking lot. I looked to the both sides. I didn't see anybody around. I didn't really bother with glasses at that point. Sometimes I did hide my vodka in Nalgene, like water bottles and stuff, but I wasn't really. I looked around, nobody was there, so I had this big old bottle of vodka. I held it up, took a big swig, sat there for a few minutes, took a few more, sat there for a few minutes, and I was like, well, I could probably go in now, and then come back in between my walking around Walmart. And I looked up, and there was this family. I didn't look in front of me. There was this family sitting in this van, and they were all watching me. I don't know, probably for the whole time. I'm sitting here drinking just straight out of this giant bottle of vodka at 5 o'clock at night in the Walmart parking lot. And I was so embarrassed. And I got a picture of myself at that time. This middle-aged mom sitting in, I had a minivan at the time, sitting in her minivan in the Walmart parking lot drinking out of a giant bottle of vodka. And I left. I was like, what do I do? And so I left, went to the other side of the parking lot, parked. Nobody was around, drank a little more, and then went into Walmart and just roamed around Walmart for about 5 or 10 minutes. And at that point, I was just living with the, oh my gosh, like I had this picture of what I was doing and what I was like. And I was like, hopeless. I had tried to stop so many times at that point. And so I got my phone and I had my earbud and I Googled AA online. It was like October of 2020. So online meetings were like a thing then. And so I Googled AA and I just clicked on the first link I saw there. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I did have a Zoom account because the kids like were in like their online school stuff. And so I went into some meeting and I was in the like curtain aisle at Walmart and I looked at my phone and there was like 6 or 7 older men in the Zoom room that I was looking at. And immediately they said, welcome, Erin, why don't you introduce yourself? And I was terrified and I hung up. So that was my very first AA meeting ever in the Walmart curtain aisle, drunk after drinking in the parking lot. And um, I went home and I was not ready or willing or honest enough at that point to seek any kind of help for my drinking. Um, I'll back up to the more beginning of my background a little bit. I was raised in a wonderful family here in Western Colorado, and my parents were married to each other. My mom, we had three kids, three girls. I'm the middle kid. We're all 2 years apart. My mom had me when she was 21. She was a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked his ass off. She worked her ass off. They were awesome parents, and had good relationships with my sisters. Um, I was always, though, kind of the trouble kid, always. And I was raised in a very religious setting. My parents were the type of people who just did the right thing just because when no one was looking for no reason. And they really did try to instill that in me, but I was pretty rebellious from the get go. But I did lean into it. And I bring up my, that I was raised in that religious setting, because it really did play a piece in my spirituality and my avoidance of it later on. And so I was really, it was a church that we went to church for 3 hours on Sunday. I went to church for an hour and a half before school every day. Lots of tithing, all the camps and clubs and all the activities. I'm very active, and I did love it. Um, I always had a problem, though, not measuring up. I always had a certain amount of hole in my soul that I was never okay with Erin. And it wasn't until I came into the program, was able to write some inventory, that I was able to see that honestly, but I didn't really know that at the time. I always felt a little bit less than, and I didn't know why. And I always wanted to break out of my small town and go do my thing. And so when I was 17, I really wanted to move out of my parents' house, and they said no. I wasn't allowed to get a job because they said school was my job. I mean, it's anyway. So I snuck and got a job, and they were like, and then I'm like, can I move out? They're like, no, you're 17 years old. Like, finish high school. You got this whole life ahead of you. And so I had this boyfriend who was 19, and I went down to the bank and I stole $3,000 of my college account money and went and bought a car, because I was using their car that they would always take away when I was not behaving, rightfully so. And but I went with my 19-year-old boyfriend, and he signed for the car. I bought this car, and I came home with it, and I'm like, "Hey, I got this car," and they said, "All right, get out. Like, we're good now. Go ahead." So I did. I moved out of my parents' house at that time, and my parents never drank. We didn't even drink coffee or anything like that. And when I got out there, I was insistent on, I'm going to like do the world my way. I'm going to see things my way. And so the first time I ever drank, I was 17, and it was at that my boyfriend's house, and it was a bunch of Bud Lights. Ugh, it was so gross, and I really never liked the taste of alcohol, but I drank. I don't know. I was just drinking them one after the other. I didn't enjoy it, and I was just like waiting to see. I would drink it and be like, okay, what's happening now? Okay, what's happening now? Nothing remarkable happened. I didn't feel like the world was right. I didn't feel like anything in particular. I got sick and hungover. And so that was my first drinking experience. So I, after I dabbled in college, I really didn't want to be tied down to anything like that, though. And so when I was 21, I just kind of floated around for a bit working seasonal jobs. And when I was 21, I decided to go into law enforcement. And I went to a law enforcement academy with the National Park Service. I was going to be a law enforcement ranger. So I moved to North Carolina. And in the academy, I turned 22. So I was 22. And that was really the second time that I drank. And I I was dating a guy at the time, and we went to this party, and I decided I'm gonna get drunk. Like, this is how it's gonna go. And it was butterscotch schnapps that I decided to drink. It was disgusting. And since that drink, that was I took it all the way. I got completely hammered, and I drank every day after that day, solidly, outside of my pregnancies and outside of a few random 30 days here or there. But that's when it kicked off. And that allergy to drink, it talks about it in the doctor's opinion. And it talks about that these alcoholic types are drinking to overcome an allergy to there's once I had that first drink, that was it. I was never uh, like like drink in the morning and then have few drinks throughout the day. It was always when I started drinking, it was drink to pass out within 3 or 4 hours. There's no way I could control any of that. I had, on my spiritual life, there had been the separation from my parents was quite tumultuous when I decided to leave and kind of do the world my own way. And in abandoning that, my parents, my life, that whole town, and just completely running away from everything, I had also abandoned religion completely and decided that God wasn't there for me. This wasn't happening. Um, there was a few times, one time in particular, where I was having after, and it was after I had started drinking, and I was having a really tough go at life with personal relationships and things. And I drove up. I was living in Utah at the time, and I drove up to this mountain, this lake, and I prayed. It was like one of those like emotionally desperate prayers that was like, God, this is horrible. Life sucks. I don't want to be here. I don't like this. If you're here, like, let me know. Help me, help me, help me. And it was kind of like a pounding on the dashboard moment. And I sat there for a few minutes and nothing happened that I felt. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess that's it. And so I decided then that there's nothing, there's no God. And this was my thinking at the time, there's no God and it's fine. I'm not mad about it, although I was. I also wrote inventory about that. I'm not mad about it, but that's just it. Like there's nothing to be mad at, there's nothing to be happy at. I am just alone here and this is how it's going to go. So I continued on my seasonal jobs. I worked all across the country as a park ranger. On my off season, I decided when I got out into the world, because I was always like, I'm never going to go to college. I'm not living by your rules. I'm not paying all this money for a stupid piece of paper. You can go kiss my ass. I decided all that. But then when I got out there, I was like, oh, so like a bunch of other people my age have these degrees and they're like necessary for this job that I want to stay in. Okay, so I had to learn though. I didn't believe anything that any adult in my life was going to tell me at that point. So I was going to school in the off season and working seasonally for the Park Service and traveling everywhere. And it was um, party time. It was party time, and which was interesting because I was drinking, I was driving, I was getting into, I had relationships. I'm not a great finisher. I was engaged about 3 or 4 times during that span. Didn't pan out. No, never. I was only married once to my husband now, but engaged a bunch of times. And in lots of domestic situations, all of those things that um, drinking and having no measure of control over the alcohol brought me constant blackouts um, and constant 3 a.m. You wake up, you're so thirsty, and you're trying to put together what happened, and you have a huge headache, and you take as much Advil as you think is going to like not kill you, hopefully, but get rid of your headache when you wake up and you can actually maybe function. It was those types of situations all the time. And then in the morning when you wake up, you take the shame shower, and I would figure out how I am not going to do this anymore. Once I'm done with this bottle, once I'm after Monday, after Christmas, after my birthday, that's when I'm going to start, and I'm going to stop drinking and I'm going to get my life in order. Didn't happen. Things, and that was, I traveled and drank and did all those things for about 10 years. And I did have some fun, but looking at it with clarity now, it was always unmanageable. And so always, I was never was able to I never had any power. I was always powerless. My life was always unmanageable. I wasn't ever able to face it though. So um, when I was toward the end of that time, I was in a relationship and things had gone really south. And we were supposed to get married, but I kept getting drunk and cheating on him. And then he'd come home and there'd be like somebody new, and he'd be like, "What's going on?" So he didn't leave me though, but I knew. And we got up within 3 weeks of the wedding, and I'm like, this is so dumb. Like, what is going on? Why am I marrying him? Why am I cheating on him? I couldn't stay sober for any amount of time. I was working. I don't really know how, but I left him 3 weeks before the wedding and moved back to my hometown, which is where I live now, in Western Colorado. And I came home after having canceled this big wedding where he was from Pennsylvania. We were getting married in Colorado. We were living in St. Louis at the time. But all these people were flying in, and it was this whole thing of like canceling this wedding. And I was pretty low at that point, and I stayed with my parents when I came back for a while. And I said, well, I'm going to stay here in Grand Junction where I live for just a couple years. I'm going to get my feet back under me again, and then I'll go and decide what I'm going to do. So I was here for about a year, and I met my husband now, and we were just casually dating, two single people hanging out, is what he liked to say. And I was drinking every day, still completely unmanageable and powerless this whole time. And I one morning I wasn't feeling right, and I went to the grocery store and I got like all these juices. I was so hungover. I got all these juices to try to like whatever. I had to go to work, and on a whim, I got a pregnancy test. Went into the bathroom there of the grocery store and took the pregnancy test, and I was pregnant. And standing in that bathroom, hung over as hell, holding that pregnancy test, the only thought that came into my mind was, how am I going to stop drinking? Like, I can't stop drinking, but I can't be pregnant and drink. What am I? What am I going to do? I don't. So it was not at all about I'm pregnant with a baby. It was only, what am I going to do about this drink thing? Like, how am I going to do this? And so I called my husband now, my two single people hanging out guy, a casual relationship, and they said, "Hey, we need to meet." So we had a chat, and it was on my mind that whole day of like, what do I do now? And that night I said, well, I drank last night and I didn't know. And so like I know now, but like I'm gonna try to finish this bottle. And so knowing I was pregnant, I'm like, this is the last night. This is the last night. I told myself. And drank that night. And then the next morning, that's when I was like, it's not the last night, and I'm gonna do it again and again. And so I decided, I don't know what the hell happened actually. I didn't drink though. That was my last time drinking in that pregnancy. I did not drink for the rest of that pregnancy. And me and my husband, we moved in together. I had my daughter. I was, like I said, I didn't drink throughout the rest of that pregnancy, but it was not easy. It was quite miserable, and especially trying to um, now make a home with this man who I didn't really know, and but we were making a good go at it, and then I had my daughter, she's 13 now. Her name is Ellie, and when 3 months after she was born, we got married. But about 2 months after she was born, I was having trouble nursing her. And I heard that if I drink beer, it helps you like with your milk and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Like I'll try that. So they were like, get some stout or whatever. So I got stout beer, and had some of that. And nursing did not work out, and neither did stopping drinking. I definitely picked up exactly where I had left off, if not worse, from before when I was pregnant with her. And so it was my drinking. I had mostly hid it from my husband as best as I could. I He knew that I drank, but what I did most of the time is encouraged him to drink. So when he would get home, I would like be like, "Oh, look, I got this cool whiskey. Like, go ahead and try that." Because if he had whiskey on his breath, he's not going to smell me. And he's a complete normie, complete normie. And so he would drink some, like maybe have half or whatever. But if I got him to have a little bit, then he's not going to smell it on me. And so he uh we continued on. Our The relationship wasn't easy though. 2 years later we had my son, and it was the same feeling when I found out that I was pregnant with him, like, how am I going to do this? But I did not drink during that pregnancy as well. But that was really the only two times in that 20 years that I drank that I was able to get any amount of sobriety, and it was about those 9 months both times. So when I had my son, the same thing happened with nursing where I was having trouble, and I stopped nursing him and I got back right into drinking again. And I had all these plans of like, this is it, I'm not going to do it. And in all those little infant years, my husband always took the night shift. And so he was the one getting up with the babies. He was the one doing all that because I was passed out. And when my son was about 2 months old, about 8 weeks old, I was getting him in bed. I gave him a bottle, put him down, and then I started drinking. And he was swaddled and tucked in, and I was just about ready to pass out. I was about drinking at that point about a fifth a day, so I had drank my fifth, and that's all that I had in the house at the time. And my son woke up. And so I get him out of his crib, I change his diaper, and I get his bottle, and I go sit on the chair in the living room and rock him back to sleep and give him his bottle. And that was about 11-ish. And then the next thing I knew, I woke up. I had passed out, and I woke up, and he was on the floor, swaddled, face down. And I picked him up, and he was alive. I don't know when he had fallen. I don't know what had happened. And that was swaddled, an 8 week old. And I'm passed out on the chair drunk. And that was another one of those, happened later, the Walmart moment. Another one of those, like, Erin, what the hell are you doing here? Like, what is going on? And I swore it off and drank that night. I had no amount of willpower, no amount of anything. So at that point, I started going to a therapist, and I lied to the therapist and told her that I had a shopping addiction because I wasn't willing to admit to my problem at that time, and that didn't work out. I only saw that, like, it was so hard to be like, I shopped again last night, whatever. Like, that was ridiculous. So I stopped seeing her and I started seeing another therapist, and I told her the truth, the amount I drank. She wasn't very well acquainted with alcoholism. And she told me we dove deep on why I'm an alcoholic. And we decided it was because I was raised in this really religious household where no one ever taught me how to drink normally, and because no one around me drank. And it was the religion's fault. And it was something that I could overcome because now I know the cause. Now I know why. It's because no one ever taught me how to drink. So, like, of course, how am I supposed to learn? And so she was like, well, go into the liquor store. This is your assignment for this week. Go into the liquor store. And I paid so much money for therapy too. She's like, go into the liquor store and then don't buy anything, and then journal about how you feel after. So after a week of like buying all the things and getting drunk still every night, and then trying to scribble out in my journal of like how I'm feeling, I'm like, this isn't working. This isn't working. And so I stopped seeing her. And then shortly after, one morning, I was driving my kids to school and I was really hungover, like I always was. But that morning I was getting really sick. And so I pulled over on when I was taking them to school a few times to throw up. And I was just like, oh, whatever, lied to my kids, lied to everybody. And when I got home, I got in the shame shower again. And, I started the scheming of like, okay, well, this bottle or this holiday, this Monday, I'm done after this. And it hit me. This was right around the Walmart time too. It hit me, Erin, you couldn't stop if you wanted to. You can't stop. You will never be able to stop. And I didn't realize at that point that there was people like me. I was so full of fear and self-pity that I thought I was 100% beyond being helped. And so that shower morning, I realized, no, it doesn't matter what you do. May as well just stop doing the scheming. Stop. You're not going to be able to stop drinking. And I did. I stopped. And those last 2 years of my drinking were completely hopeless. The pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. I mean, my children hit milestones during that time. We had all like just life events here and there. I was just a shell of a person. I was a rector set Erin, just doing what I needed to do barely. Um, if my husband works out of town a lot, when he was gone, I'd leave the kids to go get more vodka. I mean, it was just I didn't care. I stopped trying to stop drinking because I had tried for so long and it wasn't working. And so January 1st, 2022, which is my sobriety date, I well, it was actually the 31st. I saw this thing. I don't even know what it was. I saw this thing that's like quit drinking for 2022. And I just thought, oh, I could try, but why don't I try? I haven't tried in a long time. I can try. And so I woke up January 1st, because I'm a big New Year's resolution person. I know most people hate that stuff, but I love it. Like new year, new me, new beginnings. So I was like, okay, I'll try it. And it was the first time I had any sort of will to do anything about my drinking in a long time. And, and there was so many, well, so anyway, so I made it on my own, white knuckling it completely miserable for 50 days. I will say this. With that therapist, I would stop drinking for 3 or 4 days at a time, just like little handfuls. And I would get so sick. And I told her, I said, I don't know what it is, but I think drinking keeps me not sick because when I stop, I always get a cold. And she was like, Erin, that's not how biology works. Like, your body is more healthy when you're not drinking. Now I know I was going through withdrawal. Like, that would have been helpful information, but that's okay. She didn't know. And neither did I. Anyway, so I made it through the withdrawal portion and I made it 50 days. It was very difficult. And one Sunday afternoon, I knew that I was going to drink that night. And I would decided, okay, I got dinner over at my parents' house. And after dinner, I'm going to go and buy a bottle. Like, I can't. But I'm only going to buy one, blah, 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 all the stuff. And I was doing everything to try to stave off the time till like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And it was about 4 o'clock, and I was out cleaning out my car in the driveway. And I just like had the thought again, what about AA? And so I got my phone out and I typed in online AA meeting. And at that point, I still wanted nothing to do with religion or spirituality. And I typed in agnostic AA meeting. And so I clicked the button and it was the same thing. Except this meeting was bigger and it wasn't just older men. And they said, hi, Erin, you want to introduce yourself? And at that point, I said, "Hi, I'm Erin. I'm alcoholic." And I have been to a meeting every single day since that day. I might have missed a couple, maybe one. Um, but I don't remember what that meeting said or what anybody said. But I do remember the overwhelming feeling of these people drink like me. I didn't think anybody drank like me. I was so full of shame. I didn't understand alcoholism. I didn't know that my body is built differently. And when I take a drink, I have no control over the amount I take. I didn't know that. I just thought I was weak willed. I didn't know that when I'm not drinking, when I have a handful of days here and there, I didn't know that I have a mental obsession that would always, always, always bring me back to that drink. And I didn't understand those things that first meeting, but what I did understand is that people drank like me, which was blew me away. So I started going to all these meetings. I decided I was going to recover in secret, just like I drank in secret. I realized 3 short weeks after that 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 was not at all possible. I told my family, "Hey, like I'm in AA, I'm an alcoholic," and my mom, who's lovely, one of the first questions she asked me was, "Do you have to say you're an alcoholic? Do you have to say that?" And I was like, "No, I don't have to say that, Mom. I get to say that now." Because I knew at that point that this was life saving. This was just what I was looking for. This was the thing. And so I heard you need to get a sponsor. You need to work 12 steps. And I didn't even think it like I didn't even think it was an option. I hear sometimes that people hang out in the rooms and don't do the steps. I don't know if I'm thick-headed or something, but I literally was like, I didn't know that that was the thing. I thought everybody just dove into the steps, and that's exactly what I did. I didn't even hesitate. Um, when I hit step 2, my sponsor had me do this list of like all the attributes. If you were to have a higher power, what attributes would that higher power have? And I was like, this is ridiculous. But I did it because she asked me to. And I know now that that exercise was not about me finding a higher power. It wasn't about me naming a higher power. It was a measure of my willingness where I didn't want to have a higher power. And she's like, if you did, just write it down. And the fact that I did that opened the door a little bit. She had me read We Agnostics. I wanted to throw up and staple the chapter shut because I had been in religious debating societies for so long, and all of those arguments in that chapter were just infuriating to me at the time. Today, that is my absolute favorite chapter. I love it. And there's a part in the book that says the absolute the great it doesn't matter if I quote it exactly, but the fact that our creator has entered into our hearts in a miraculous way, that has truly happened now. But at the time, and my sponsor didn't blink. She's like, yeah, okay, cool. You hate it. It doesn't matter because this instructions on how to get in sober and stay sober, this was their story. So it's not up to you to agree or disagree or anything. Just read it. Like it's their story of how these people did this. So that was this exact sponsor I needed at the exact time. And I worked up through the steps. And my step 3 prayer I didn't like. Again, we're going to close with it today. It's my favorite prayer today. And I picked a song instead of the prayer. That was okay. It was okay. Like that was the greatest thing about this is there was no dogma. There was no anything. It was like very basic and it was very simple. And that's exactly what I needed. I did step 4. My sponsor was on Zoom. I took step 5. I locked myself in my bathroom. I put a towel under the door. I sat in my bathtub and read my step 5 to her. And it was shortly after I took step 5 that there's a paragraph in the book that talks about um, where we begin to feel the nearness of our Creator after step 5. And I was at a speaker meeting, and I had a habit of, when the meeting got too gaudy, I called it, I turned it off. If people were like, higher power and all this stuff, I was like, nah, I'm good. And I listened to this man tell his story, and it was full of spirituality, and it touched me, and I was bawling. And at the end, I just noticed I'm still here. I didn't turn off this meeting. I didn't log out. And that was the turning point for me, where all things spirituality, I was like, yes, I need it all. At that point, I was about, well, then I went on to step 6 and 7, and 8, and then in 9, I started making amends, and I started practicing 10, 11, and 12. And I was missing something in my sobriety, and I found, I didn't know what it was, and I found a woman who was a spiritual giant, and just what I needed. And so I moved on from my first sponsor, who was lovely and just what I needed, but it was time for me to move on. And I started working with a new lady, and we dove in again because I wasn't ready at the time to look at all of the precise set of directions. I just needed a lot of first aid that first year. I took the steps, and I was as fearless and thorough as I could be at the time, but I needed to go back because at that point I had been more willing and more able to see my Creator and let that peace in. And so I went back through and read every word of the book with her and with a group of people, and it was life-changing for me at that point. And that's where I learned that the true recovery is within these words of this book. And it talks about in the book that the purpose of the book is to bring you close to a higher power that will keep you sober. And that's exactly what it did. I got into this group when I was about 10 months sober. And it was a different group at the time. I'm sure you guys all are sick of like us telling the genesis of this group, but it was a different group at the time. And then it became what it is today. But the first 3 months in this group, I didn't talk at all. I'm not much of a talker, although you wouldn't guess it by, you know, 51 minutes later. But I finally started talking in this group, and then becoming a member and becoming a family member and learning all the different personalities. And I feel like with a lot of the members of this group, we kind of, there's a lot of us who are from the original group who are right in around the same sobriety time, and we're growing up and doing these things to get this thing together, and we're making a ton of freaking mistakes. But that's the other thing I've learned. That's okay. Like, I was talking to a mentor when I was about a year and a half, and I was trying to practice step 10, and I was so confused on it, and I was trying to make things way more complicated. And he just got close to the camera and he said, Erin. I was like, what? And he goes, are you afraid you're going to screw this up? I said, yes, yes. And he's like, Erin, what? He's like, you're going to screw this up. And I said, okay. And it was like this shift of like, it's okay if I don't practice this perfectly. It's okay if I get mad. It's okay if I do this. But now that I have this designed for living, I can do something about it now. My inventory process I was able to see clearly on the interaction with my parents and the interaction with my religion, clearly the truth of things and how I made decisions, how these other decisions were made, and was able to become now, which I never thought would be possible, is to become complete peace with that. I have a great relationship with my parents. Today, it still flashes up at times, but today I'm complete peace and have no resentment toward organized religion. Definitely no resentment toward my Creator anymore. And it's all as the result of taking the steps, which is insane to me. It's still insane to me. If I don't know if it'll ever not become insane, that this can, and this can bring me from that to here. And my bottom wasn't, it was complete, the pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. That's what it was. It didn't, all the outside things wasn't there, but it was when I had a full knowledge of my condition, that I had completely powerless over alcohol, my life was unmanageable. That gave my higher power something to work with. And then I was able to get into this program and just follow the steps. And it's been awesome. So I think that is it, though. I appreciate you guys listening to me today. And thanks, Mary, for sharing.